I will fully 100% admit I was completely wrong about the Tzeentch cultist. I had originally thought that this was the weakest out of all the cultists, but now I think it might actually secretly be the strongest for a couple of reasons. Number one is, of course, it's a cultist. It's a great cultist. So it has a missile unit summon rather than the melee infantry summon like all the others have, which situationally can be quite useful, but more than that, it has two ridiculously powerful map-wide effects. The first is, of course, Kindle Flame, we all know and love, given that a lot of units on Tzeentch's roster deal fire damage, both in melee and with their missile attacks. It's quite nice to be able to spam these two cheap spells, Fireball and Cascading Fire Cloak, but the other insanely powerful map-wide effect is this Wand of Whimsy right here. So I didn't realize that this was map-wide. You see the effect range is infinite, right? That means it's map-wide, essentially. 12 melee attack, 12% base weapon damage. So every time you cast a spell, you're giving a 20% damage increase to anything with flaming attacks, extra 12% to their base weapon damage, and 12 melee attacks. So just insanely strong. That combined with the power of Forsaken and Tzeentch, spawn, the fact that all the horrors and pinks and blues and everything else also are sort of hybrid melee missile units, right? They have decent melee stats, means they'll trade even better with those buffs active. So they, in a land battle against Coops, I've brought an Exalted Lord of Change with no spells, just the Portal Glyph Fury summon. So all the spells are going to be coming from the Cultist, just so I wouldn't get distracted. We've also got an regular Lord of Change as well. For the bound spells, of course, this guy now has access to one use each of blue and pink fire, bound that do not use Winds of Magic, so that's nice. I've also got two spawn, a core of blue horrors, two Forsaken, and the Blazing Squealers, Exalted Pinks in the back for Coop's Slaanesh, coming in with a cheap Herald. This is sort of the idea with Slaanesh, is you take two relatively cheap casters and just hope that they don't both get sniped too quickly. I've also got some Seekers in the back, some Seeker Chariots, Hell Striders, lots of Marauder Infantry as well, some Hell Scourges mixed in with Spears. So pretty good stuff. The Chariots can definitely be a very solid pick in this matchup. You can see I combined the Fireball, and I managed to time them so that the Kindle Flame and the Warp Fire are both in effect, at least when the Fireball should have made contact. Unfortunately, it was a swing and a miss there. And then the Hellstriders of Slaanesh going to get into combat, but that Cascading Fire Cloak, again, I just want you to make a note. All these units have Kindle Flame, right? All these Marauders of Slaanesh and other units have Kindle Flame, so the shooting of the Blue Horrors is going to do some extra damage. And then look at that 32 melee attack on these Blue Horrors with 27 weapon damage. A lot of the Marauders on the approach just get blasted and are not able to hold, but my Cultist is definitely in mortal danger right now. I'm going to drop the Exalted Lord of Change in here. We're going to drop the Fury Summon in here as well momentarily. Try and bail him out because he's very important to my sort of plan at this point. Blue and pink fire also raining in. He's taking significant anti-large damage, but thankfully the barrier was able to eat quite a bit of it there, and he manages to pull through. Meanwhile, speaking of pulling through, the Chariots attempting to pull through do get caught up on the spawn a little bit here, which is most unfortunate. The other unit is able to get through and get some good disruption and damage in. More fireballs, and yeah, we had the Warp Flame and Fireball, I think. No, maybe not. Maybe that was earlier. Yeah, we'll have to watch for the pink fire. Still yet to be used, but we're going to have another Fury Summon coming in here. The Lord of Change gets the Cascading Fire Cloak to give him extra weapon damage and melee defense as he fights the Herald of Slaanesh in melee here, and should be doing okay. Again, that Wand of Whimsy really, in my opinion, should not be a map-wide effect. Makes the Cultist, which is already very strong, just that much more stronger, right? Speaking of Cultist, you can see his summoned pinks just went down there. And, despite the buff there for the Lord of Change, that Cascading Fire Cloak doesn't last very long. He kind of gets distracted by all these Marauders, starts to take damage from, ooh, look at that Locus of Beguilement, man, just get literally every single unit within that radius, 24 melee defense and physical resistance, so that was a big buff. Might help these Slaanesh units hold out a little bit longer. This Lord of Change in danger of going down here at this point, but I do still have this nice little pocket of blues and pinks Oops is a little bit overstacked with his units. He could fan out with like his spears and his hell scourges a little more and try to occupy these units to keep them from shooting. But at this point, the big problem is these Lords of Change, both still fighting. He hasn't managed to finish off the one. The other one's still fighting, and a little bit of a mistake too, leaving the Allurus outside, which I don't know if she would have made enough of a difference to win. But especially with the Cultists still very healthy and alive in the back line. We're going to get a little bit of a bombardment there. It looks like, oh man. Yeah, another Fury summon from me this time. Sorry, the Fury summons we both had, so it's a little bit hard to keep track of who's doing what at a given time, but there we go. That pretty much put the nail in the coffin for me. I'm still going to have to clean up some units. Still have to do, you know, what I can. A little bit of Fireball there, and again, that Wand of Whimsy, like if we check in with the spawns, up to 40 melee attack, 141 weapon damage for the spawns. So honestly, I didn't realize that Wand of Whimsy was map wide, but the fact that the Cultist has two extremely strong map wide effects, and also the fact that, while yes, your lords are spellcasters as Tzeentch, whatever lord choice you do take is going to be a spellcaster. You can cut the spells from them, and certainly both have their uses. The Herald as just a flying shooting unit potentially, and the Exalted Lord of Change as like a powerhouse monster lord, even with no spells, definitely are useful. So is this viable? I would say in land battles, definitely. I tried it a little bit in some domination games as well, and I have had some success with it. But in general, I do think this is potentially quite strong, quite viable way to play this, as long as you can keep the Cultist of Tzeentch from getting sniped. And while that's not guaranteed against Slaanesh, I was fairly confident with sort of my build setup and everything. I could like hide him in his spawn if I needed to. I could hide him in a bunch of blues, and you know, in general, I wasn't too worried about keeping him alive, even though Slaanesh does have very fast speed, and they're decently competent at assassinating characters on the battlefield. Still wasn't too worried about it, you know, with the barrier and some of the other tools I had in my kit here. I felt fairly safe, but honestly, it is a little bit risky tying so much of your sort of build identity to it. But regardless, it helps just the rest of the build perform well. I mean, he himself didn't rack up crazy value, but like the blues, of course, they trade cost effectively anyway, but especially with that little melee attack weapon strength buff with so many units, really scales exponentially with the more unit models you have, right? Especially weapon damage buffs. But anyway, spawn also are again already very good, but just get that much better with that. And then the regular Lord of Change also getting some nice buffs, trading decently well. It was a rough go of it, I would say. Coop's sort of being a Slaanesh main, at least for the time being, in Warhammer 3. It's rough. Slaanesh in this patch, at least, is in a really rough place. They might be the worst faction in the game right now. In my opinion, they might have fallen down below where Cathay was before. But we'll see. Hopefully in the next, update or two, they'll get some additional love and support, but have to wait and see on that front. For today, that's pretty much it for me. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this one. Hopefully you learned something. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thank you once again for watching, and we'll see you next time.